In the heart of the Roman Empire, at the peak of the Severan dynasty, two brothers, Caracalla and Geta, embodied the destructive power of ambition, rivalry, and betrayal. What should have been a unified reign became a brutal struggle for dominance, as the brothers' bitter conflict escalated into a personal and political catastrophe that would leave Rome forever scarred. Raised under the shadow of their father's empire, their shared future as rulers quickly unraveled, as each sought to seize total control. Their story is not just one of political failure, but a tragic tale of familial discord that shattered a dynasty and changed the course of Roman history. Step into the world of Caracalla and Geta, where sibling rivalry spirals out of control, taking down an empire with it. This is a tale of ambition gone too far, and a lesson in the perils of unchecked power within families. Caracalla and Geta were born into a unique and demanding position as the sons of Septimius Severus, a skilled general from North Africa, and Julia Domna, a noblewoman from Syria. From a young age, they were groomed to embody the responsibilities and grandeur of imperial nobility, with the expectation that they would one day rule the vast Roman Empire together. However, their childhood under the constant shadow of their father's ambition and their future responsibilities shaped them into two very different individuals. Caracalla, born Lucius Septimius Bassianus in 188 CE, was the elder of the two. He grew up with a deep admiration for the great military leaders of Roman history, such as his father Severus and the famed general Scipio Africanus. Caracalla's upbringing placed a strong emphasis on martial discipline, and from an early age, he displayed a keen interest in military matters, which would come to define his rule. Severus, recognizing his son's fierce ambition and militaristic inclinations, began training him in the art of warfare. Caracalla was often seen as the more aggressive and dominant of the two brothers, displaying a strong desire to expand Rome's borders through conquest and military might. In contrast, Geta, born Publius Septimius Geta in 189 CE, appeared to possess a more diplomatic nature, and his early life was marked by a preference for administration over military conquest. While Caracalla dreamed of expanding Rome's territories, Geta seemed more focused on governance and maintaining stability within the empire. He was trained to be an administrator, and his temperament was often described as more moderate and pragmatic, compared to Caracalla's impulsive and hot-headed character. Geta's inclination toward diplomacy and governance would make him more suitable for ruling through alliances, laws, and political maneuvering, rather than relying on military power. Their father, Severus, had high hopes for both sons. He sought to balance their contrasting abilities. Caracalla was intended to be the military leader, while Geta would manage the empire's internal affairs, focusing on governance and diplomacy. Despite these roles, tension between the brothers grew. Severus's dual expectations placed an immense amount of pressure on them. Caracalla's rising military ambition clashed with Geta's more cautious approach to leadership. As the brothers matured, these differences turned into an increasingly bitter rivalry. Though both sons received the same rigorous education, including military training and first-hand involvement in campaigns, their personalities and visions for the empire were starkly different. The internal conflict between them was exacerbated by the growing political and familial tensions. Their rivalry was not merely a clash of personal interests, but a reflection of the conflicting ideologies that Severus hoped would complement each other, but instead drove the brothers further apart. In the years that followed, their relationship deteriorated as each sought to assert dominance over the other. The differences in their approach to leadership, once subtle, became a major factor in the eventual disintegration of the Severan dynasty. What began as an ambitious co-ruling vision evolved into an increasingly hostile and destructive rivalry, leading to tragic consequences for both brothers and the empire they were meant to rule together. If you're enjoying this dive into Roman history, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Septimius Severus ascended to the throne in 193 CE during a period of intense political chaos following the assassination of Emperor Commodus. Known for his military acumen and political savvy, Severus was a seasoned general from North Africa who had earned the loyalty of his soldiers through tactical brilliance and generous rewards. His rise to power, however, came amidst the Year of the Five Emperors, a period marked by civil war and factionalism as various military leaders scrambled for control of the empire. Severus immediately understood that securing the loyalty of the military was key to stabilizing the empire. His first major reform was to increase the pay of soldiers and grant them greater rights, ensuring their loyalty to him above all else. This shift in policy was designed to solidify his rule and was a departure from the previous reliance on the Senate or aristocratic class for support. He also gave the army more direct control over the imperial succession, a move that would influence Roman politics for centuries. This military-centric approach was one of Severus's defining characteristics, as he built his reign on the foundation of a loyal and well-compensated military. Recognizing the importance of ensuring the dynasty's survival, Severus began grooming his two sons, Caracalla and Geta, for co-rule. His intention was to have the brothers work together, with Caracalla focusing on military matters and Geta overseeing governance. However, the contrasting personalities and ambitions of his sons meant that this vision would never come to fruition. Severus believed that their cooperation was crucial to maintaining the stability of the empire, but he underestimated the depth of their rivalry. In 208 CE, Severus embarked on a military campaign in Britain, which would be one of the last significant military endeavors of his reign. His campaign was a success, but the physical toll it took on his health became apparent. The strain of war, combined with the stress of managing an empire teetering on the edge of internal conflict, led to a rapid decline in Severus's health. By 201 CE, as death approached, Severus made his final plea to his sons: be harmonious, enrich the soldiers, and scorn all others. This stark message underscored his belief that unity, especially in relation to the army, was paramount to maintaining imperial power. Unfortunately, Severus's dying wish would go unheeded. By the time he passed away, the rift between Caracalla and Geta had already become too deep and entrenched to be healed. The brothers' relationship had been marked by jealousy, mistrust, and a growing desire for sole power, which would ultimately lead to the violent and destructive end of their joint reign. Severus's failure to manage the tensions between his sons, despite his military and political genius, sealed the fate of the Severan dynasty, and their fractious relationship would set the stage for a period of instability that would severely weaken the Roman Empire in the years that followed. Upon the death of Septimius Severus in 211 CE, his sons Caracalla and Geta ascended to the throne as co-emperors, a succession plan that had been carefully crafted by their father. However, their shared rule quickly descended into chaos. Although both brothers had been groomed for leadership, their differing personalities and ambitions made it impossible for them to govern effectively together. Caracalla, the elder and more aggressive of the two, was primarily focused on military expansion. He saw himself as a warrior emperor, determined to extend Rome's borders and secure its imperial power. Caracalla's vision for the empire was one of aggressive conquest and militaristic dominance. His obsession with military glory led him to focus on strengthening and expanding the army, as well as maintaining the loyalty of soldiers through lavish rewards and increased power. In stark contrast, Geta took a more diplomatic approach to ruling. He believed that stability in the empire could be maintained through good governance and careful administration. Geta's focus was on the inner workings of the empire, including legal reforms and managing relations with the provinces. His more temperate, non-militaristic vision of governance often clashed with Caracalla's ambitions for territorial expansion and military prowess. As a result, the empire became effectively divided, with Caracalla ruling over the western provinces and Geta overseeing the eastern parts of the empire. Each brother sought to build his own power base within his respective region. Despite the outward show of unity, including joint coins and monuments that depicted the brothers together, their rivalry was apparent to everyone who observed their reign. The imperial court was rife with tension, as Caracalla and Geta constantly maneuvered to outdo each other. Their mutual distrust and jealousy grew with each passing day, and the division between them only deepened. Their mother, Domna, tried to mediate the conflict between her sons. She was a powerful and influential figure in her own right, serving as the empress consort and a respected advisor. Julia made numerous attempts to reconcile the brothers, urging them to put aside their personal animosities for the good of the empire. However, her efforts were ultimately in vain. The brothers were beyond reconciliation. Caracalla's increasing paranoia and desire for sole power pushed him to take drastic measures. In 211 CE, just months after their father's death, Caracalla ordered the assassination of Geta, bringing their shared reign to a violent and bloody end. In 211 CE, the already tense and fractured relationship between Caracalla and Geta reached its deadly conclusion. Caracalla, determined to consolidate his power and eliminate his rival once and for all, lured Geta into a meeting under the pretense of seeking reconciliation. The meeting was set in their mother, Domna's, private chambers, an area that should have been a place of peace and resolution. However, Caracalla's true intentions were far from peaceful. As Geta entered the room, Caracalla ambushed him, drawing a dagger and stabbing his younger brother in cold blood. Ancient sources vary slightly on the exact details, but one common account is that Geta, realizing he was being attacked, attempted to flee to their mother's embrace. He sought refuge in her arms, but Caracalla, driven by his ruthlessness and ambition, continued his assault, ultimately killing Geta as he sought sanctuary in their mother's presence. Domna, a powerful figure in her own right, was powerless to stop the tragedy unfolding before her. Afterward, Caracalla declared himself sole emperor, immediately taking steps to solidify his position. He ordered a violent purge of Geta's supporters, targeting anyone who had been loyal to his brother. Statues and portraits of Geta were destroyed, and his name was systematically removed from public records, a process known as damnatio memoriae. This erasure of Geta from history was a calculated move by Caracalla, not just to eliminate his brother, but to erase all evidence of his co-rule and legacy. In some cases, monuments that had been built to honor both brothers were altered or destroyed to reflect Caracalla's sole dominion. While this brutal act secured Caracalla's rule in the short term, it came at a great cost. The assassination of Geta was not merely a political maneuver. It was an act of fratricide that shocked the Roman Empire and left a permanent stain on Caracalla's reign. The public nature of the murder and the violent purge that followed created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion throughout the empire. The brutality of the assassination alienated many potential supporters and tarnished Caracalla's legitimacy as emperor. In the eyes of many, his actions showed a lack of honor, and his rule became synonymous with violence, insecurity, and distrust. The act of fratricide also had profound political repercussions. While Caracalla may have thought that eliminating Geta would eliminate his rival, the aftershocks of the murder reverberated throughout the empire. His reign, marked by paranoia and a growing sense of isolation, would ultimately prove to be short-lived. The assassination of his brother would come to define Caracalla's legacy, overshadowing any military victories or reforms he might have otherwise been remembered for. After securing the throne following the assassination of his brother Geta in 211 CE, Caracalla embarked on a reign marked by bold decisions, but these were often controversial and left a complex legacy. His rule was dominated by military pursuits and harsh governance, creating a volatile mix that ultimately undermined his reign. One of Caracalla's most notable ambitions was his desire to expand the Roman Empire through military conquests. His campaigns focused on Parthia, a long-standing rival of Rome in the east. In 216 CE, Caracalla launched an ambitious campaign to conquer the Parthian Empire, but the endeavor turned disastrous. Despite initial successes, the campaign failed to achieve significant territorial gains and drained Rome's resources. The financial burden, combined with heavy military losses, strained the empire's economy and undermined Caracalla's reputation as a military leader. This failure highlighted the limits of his ambition and contributed to the growing discontent among both the Roman elite and the populace, who felt the heavy toll of the failed campaign. Caracalla's most significant and lasting legislative act was the Constitutio Antoniniana of 212 CE, which granted Roman citizenship to nearly all free men within the empire. While this act expanded the citizen base of Rome, it was seen by many as a practical financial maneuver rather than a gesture of social inclusion. Historians have pointed out that Caracalla's primary motivation was to increase tax revenue, as Roman citizens were subject to higher taxes than provincial subjects. By extending citizenship to large swaths of the population, Caracalla could collect taxes from more people, thereby bolstering the empire's finances. The move was therefore less about justice or reform and more about financial pragmatism, underscoring Caracalla's focus on maintaining imperial wealth and resources for his military pursuits. Caracalla also initiated large-scale public works, with the Baths of Caracalla being the most famous and grandiose of these projects. The baths, which could accommodate thousands of people, were a symbol of Roman luxury and imperial might. However, the immense cost of such projects further strained the empire's already stretched finances. Though the baths were a monumental achievement in architecture and engineering, they were also a lavish drain on the imperial budget that left little for other necessary improvements or military expenditures. As his reign continued, Caracalla's leadership became increasingly oppressive. His paranoia about potential threats to his power led him to eliminate those he perceived as rivals. This resulted in numerous purges, including the execution of prominent senators and military leaders who were seen as obstacles to his absolute rule. His reign was marked by a growing culture of fear, and many officials began to operate under the constant dread of falling victim to Caracalla's violent tendencies. His unchecked brutality, while securing his position in the short term, alienated many of his supporters and sowed the seeds for rebellion. By 217 CE, dissatisfaction with Caracalla's rule had reached a breaking point. His combination of military failures, financial strain, oppressive policies, and growing paranoia created widespread unrest. Ultimately, it was this atmosphere of fear and resentment that led to his assassination. One of Caracalla's chief enforcers, his praetorian prefect Macrinus, grew fearful of his own safety and the threat of Caracalla's unpredictable temper. Macrinus, who had been appointed to his position by Caracalla himself, began to plot against the emperor in order to protect both his life and his own position. His decision was likely influenced by Caracalla's increasingly erratic behavior and his constant purges of those he suspected of treachery. The plot was carefully orchestrated. Caracalla, as usual, was on a military campaign in the east. Near the city of Caracalla, modern-day Turkey, he made a stop to relieve himself outside his military camp. This routine moment would prove to be his last. As he took a break from the march, Caracalla was ambushed and stabbed by members of his own guard under the command of Macrinus. The attack was swift, and Caracalla was killed instantly, leaving no room for retaliation or escape. Caracalla's death was a pivotal moment in Roman history. It marked the end of the Severan dynasty's direct line, as Caracalla was the last of the Severans to hold the imperial throne. His assassination also heralded a period of instability that would severely impact the empire in the following decades. The power vacuum created by his death contributed to the broader crisis of the 3rd century, a period of military anarchy, economic instability, and civil war that would ravage the Roman Empire for much of the century. Though Macrinus assumed the throne following Caracalla's death, his reign was short-lived, and the political turmoil that followed Caracalla's assassination would see many other emperors rise and fall in quick succession, further weakening the imperial structure. Caracalla's violent end was emblematic of the broader issues facing the Roman Empire at the time, a state constantly at war, riddled with internal strife, and ruled by despots who struggled to maintain control over the vast territories they governed. The tragic saga of Caracalla and Geta serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and fractured leadership. Their bitter rivalry, rooted in deep family conflict, not only destroyed the Severan dynasty, but also set the stage for the turmoil of Rome's 3rd century crisis. This failure to unite for the empire's greater good is a timeless lesson. Personal animosities, if left unchecked, can unravel even the mightiest of empires. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a new video. Have any thoughts on the Severan brothers? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your opinions. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories from the past.